double standards of the left. We've talked about it several times on this program, including the protest double standard. Keep in mind that during the lockdown protests, people were saying on the left, you shouldn't go protest. Stay at home, abide by the law. But then a protest they approve of, one spurred on by the senseless murder of George Floyd, these protests across the country that were spurred on by that murder by a police officer, resulted in protests that they felt were okay. Not just okay, they even encouraged people to jump in to those protests, to go participate. In fact, even physicians did that. There was a whole organizational effort earlier this month that's called White Coats for Black Lives. And that is physicians who went out to protest and specifically said, this is okay to participate in these protests because systemic racism is a sort of virus as well. In fact, if you go to pick 2, let's put up Mr. Matoush, pick 2, there were those saying that these protests were essential to America. An op-ed earlier this month in the New York Times entitled, "As a Black Doctor, Should I Choose My Skin Color or My Health?" said the following: these protests are necessary for the recognition and eradication of injustice. These protests are the first dose of medicine needed to rid the system of metastatic racism. To ask, what do you think as a black doctor about COVID-19 and the protests is to ask me to choose my skin color or my health. This is precisely the false choice black Americans make all the time, which we should cease to make today. The answer to both is the same: enact policies that do not systemically disenfranchise and endanger black people. In other words, they have a reason that they think is very strongly presented for these kinds of protests. They have a reason for saying that participating in these protests trumps concern about the virus. They have a reason for saying the protests should happen and physicians should even be a part of it and endorse it. Now, one can argue in favor of their case. For the purposes of this conversation today, I don't really care. I don't care if that protest is merited or not. If it is a protest and the Constitution protects both the freedom to peaceably assemble and the right to free speech, you should be able to peaceably assemble in protest regardless of the cause. And politicians and elites and doctors shouldn't be making that sort of determination. The double standard is very clear. We think this is an important health issue, systemic racism. Therefore, it justifies a protest calling for public policy changes across the country. Now, I would say that the health issues, and in fact I have many times on this program, that the health issues associated with the lockdowns, mental health debilitations, suicides, the inability to go get a biopsy to find out if you've had cancer, you've got cancer, and it's malignant and you need the tumor to be removed, the consequences of losing jobs en masse and potentially being out of work for years. You put all of those things and many more together in terms of health issues. Absolutely, there is a health case. If we want to get into debating whether or not a protest is merited, which again we should not, government should not be making that sort of determination. But if we want to have that kind of a debate, I will absolutely make the case every day of the week and twice on Sundays that the lockdowns are also absolutely have affected the health of millions of Americans in dramatically adverse ways other than COVID-19. So that was a double standard we dealt with before, but now there's another. Washington State has just mandated that everybody across the state must wear a mask. However, one county, Lincoln County, has decided to make an exception. This county, in pick 1, has made this several exceptions. One of them about health conditions related to wearing a mask, another about children, okay. People with disabilities, all right. I could follow along with that. But then you get to number 4. People of color who have heightened concerns about racial profiling and harassment due to wearing face coverings in public. Look at that line. Heightened concerns. In other words, it's very subjective. Not only is there an exception made, but it is a subjective exception made for the individual to decide if they don't want to wear a mask or do want to wear a mask. Let's put up pick 3. The United States Constitution, ironically in the 14th Amendment, which was put into place during Reconstruction to protect the rights, especially of freed slaves, states this: all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That last point is the most important relative to this Washington County's policy of let's make a subjective exception based on the concerns of an individual. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That means that the government of Washington State and those who are part of that state are forbidden from treating people unequally. That is not to say that that hasn't been done. Absolutely it has. I'm not arguing that the Constitution has been perfectly followed. I would never argue such a thing. I am a conservative, after all, who believes that the federal government has gone well beyond the Constitution, and states have gone well beyond the U.S. Constitution in some cases, and certainly their own constitutions. So make no mistake, I don't believe that the Constitution has been perfectly followed. I'm not arguing that. But what I am arguing here is that this is a violation expressly of equal protection under the law. First of all, I don't think a mask requirement should be made anyway, should be issued anyway. Nobody should be required by the state to wear a mask. But if you are going to make such a statement, unless it is very directly tied to something that makes sense, like children, disabilities, or a health issue that would make you adversely affected directly by it, you can't make some kind of exception and vague and broad exception to what is being enforced as the law, even though it's not a law, it's arbitrary by the state. You must abide by it. Okay, you should have to abide by it regardless of the color of your skin. The double standards presented by the left are fundamentally wrong on every level, including levels they should be advocating for. But alas, here we are in our society today. If you are on board with their view, or you exemplify some particular position that they have taken, you get a pass. It's okay. But if you disagree, if you take a different position, if you come at things in a different way, or if you're not part of a particular group that they've decided needs special treatment, in the case of this Lincoln County, Washington exemption, well, so what? We don't really care. That's not a free society. As Thomas Jefferson said, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, and we must make sure to be eternally vigilant. Thanks for watching this clip of Jimmy at the Crossroads. Don't miss more engaging, intelligent talk. Subscribe today to the Jimmy at the Crossroads YouTube channel. You do not want to miss our live show. Thanks for your support.
I got Jimmy at the Crossroads. making sense out of no sense. Yeah.